Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. This is episode 28 of Zach with an H. Very excited to bring on Dante Marchitelli. If you don't know Dante Marchitelli, you'll know him. You'll come to know him over the next half hour. Long time with the Orlando Magic, sideline reporter. He's also doing the road play-by-play. Dante, thank you for joining. I'm excited to learn more about your journey and your career today.
Well, it's great to be with you, Zach. First of all, that intro, man, I love that intro. That is sharp. I gotta work on some of that for some of my own stuff. But great to be with you. Good to talk with you. Good to meet you, and look forward to talking a little NBA.
Absolutely. I will say that I did not create the video intro. I wish I could say that was me. However, I'm always happy to play it.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned guest 28. That's perfect. I just finished year 28 with the Orlando Magic, so that works out perfect.
Year 28, a place you've been for a long time, which we're going to get to. So, Dante, before you were with the Magic, before you were at Liberty University, before you were 18 and leaving Woburn, Massachusetts, what was the first thing you wanted to do for a career?
You're good, man. You're good. Yeah, that's exactly right. You know what? I wanted to play in the NBA. I wanted to be an NBA player. It was always basketball, only basketball. I didn't have aspirations. Some kids when I was in class in fifth grade, and Zach, too, because once it gets in the blood, you want to do it. You're hearing your fourth and fifth grade classmates saying they want to be doctors and lawyers and all that stuff, which is awesome. I knew those prestigious jobs weren't going to be in the cards for me. So I wanted to be in basketball. I wanted to be in basketball in some capacity. And I thought, man, one day I'm going to make it to the NBA. I was pretty tall I was always one of the tallest in my class until I got to high school. So I thought this is a possibility. I played, I would eat, sleep, and drink NBA basketball. So that was the first goal. I'm going to play. Larry Bird's going to retire, and he's going to pass the torch on to Dante Marchitelli.
And now, who was your first jersey in the NBA jersey? Who'd you have?
Oh, it was definitely Larry Bird. Larry Bird was my favorite guy. I was such a Celtics fan. I was such a Larry Bird fan. Then I became a Reggie Lewis fan. You remember when Reggie Lewis came through Boston, and then D Brown? Like those were all my Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, all those guys. Just growing up in that area, going to games on occasion, sitting behind a pole. You remember they'd sell obstructed view seats. So I'd sit behind a pole just to be in Boston Garden. But Larry Bird was definitely the first jersey. And then it's weird. It's somewhere along the line, I became a fan of those bad boy Pistons. And so I kind of likened my style a little bit to Rodman. I was just an aggressive offensive on the floor, nothing off the floor.
Of course.
But I was aggressive. I went after every single rebound. So I ended up kind of moving to the power forward position. And Rodman was my next jersey. I loved how he would get in everybody's head, and I love how he was aggressive and the way that he fought. So those would be and it's quite a pivot from Larry Bird, but those were my first two jerseys.
I was going to say, I'm glad, because otherwise, if you had a very similar trajectory to Rodman, then you would have had a crazy night in Vegas that you don't remember.
That's right. And mind you, this is Pistons Rodman. I had the number 10 from the Detroit Pistons. After he left Detroit, it was, that's when he became the Hall of Famer, and he did 20 rebounds a night. But I when he first started coming up, boy, I just loved how hard he played, and I loved how much he set up his teammates. That seemed to be what he was all about, right? Defense, and that's what I loved about Bird. It wasn't always the scoring, but it was the basketball IQ, it was the passing, it was the highlight reel plays. I just always gravitate kind of towards not the scorers, but the guys that kind of make their teammates better.
Sure. And so now, your basketball playing days are kind of winding down as you get to high school.
Yep.
Why Liberty University?
Yeah, it's a great question. I didn't know much about Liberty, to be quite honest with you, but I had some friends that went there. So where I went to school, I moved from Massachusetts to upstate New York, and then I had some friends that were graduating going to Liberty. I heard great things about it. I checked it out. I did my research, and it seemed like a great school. It was Division I, so I knew it would have a competitive basketball program. I tried out, didn't make it. So that was the end of my NBA dreams right there. Actually ended probably about 9th or 10th grade when I realized it wasn't good enough. But so I wanted to be somewhere, kind of make my way south, not all the way south, but I wanted to kind of get out of the cold as well. And I just had friends that went there. I heard good things about it, and I knew they were starting a communications program. Mass Comms was just coming on board around 1994 when I went there, which was an eternity ago. You weren't even born, but when but barely. But went back there. So I thought this might be a great opportunity for hands-on experience. There's a lot of other great universities you can go to, but I thought, you know what? I got friends there. Everything I love about it, everything I read about it was great. They had gone to the NCAA tournament the year before, so I thought that might be a fun environment down there. But most importantly, I thought, my goal of, maybe following in the shoes of Johnny Most or Joe Castiglione or Mike Gorman and getting on the air might have an opportunity to do some radio stuff with Liberty University.
And before we move on, and then it's unrelated. This is not the Cavs pod. This is Zach with an H. To the obviously cool Liberty connection, looking behind me, to anyone that is a first-time listener, veteran, Mark Price's son played 2 years at Liberty in recent years, Josh Price. So shout out there. But now we get back on track.
Yeah,
we are talking. Is it Marchitelli, not Marchitelli?
It is Marchitelli. Yep.
Marchitelli. Okay.
It took me until a year ago, right? So it took me my whole life to realize in the Italian language there is no K. So the CH makes the K in the Italian language. So that's where you get Mark instead of March. Yeah, but I listen, I've been, you can call me whatever you want. Doesn't matter to me.
All right, Dante. So from Liberty, you land right with the Orlando Magic. First, you land an internship.
Yes.
With the Orlando Magic. What was the process? Was it competitive? Did you have to go down there? Were you already living there? Did you move for the job? What's the story?
Well, I was good question. I was in my senior year, and I had a guidance counselor, and he would post NBA. He would post internships for professional sports on his wall outside of his door. So I thought, okay, I'm going down now. It's now March of my senior year, and some buddies, and we're all going down to spring break. We had a friend whose family lived down there, so they had invited us all to go to the beach for a couple of days during spring break. And I thought, you know what? I was going to say hi to him before we took off. And as I was leaving, I looked at all the jobs, and one said Orlando Magic internship. And I said, we're going to be close to Orlando. I said, I wonder if I make a phone call. The internet was kind of just getting started, so I couldn't really Google the exact person. So I had to call the Orlando Magic main number and tell them what I was looking for and have them direct me to the right person, which they did. Was Katie Ennis, which I'm still forever grateful to this day. But I said, I'm going to be in Florida. I said, I would love it. If anything, I said, if I'm not granted an interview, I totally get it. But is there any way I come in and just see the facility and see? She goes, oh my goodness, yes, we'd love to have you. Come on in. We'll sit down. We'll talk and we'll do an interview when you get here. And that made my day. I mean, I was so excited. So I said, okay, on our way down to Florida for spring break, let's swing through Orlando. I've got an interview. So I packed a suit. I owned one suit. I packed a briefcase, Zach, right? As a kid going to spring break, I packed his briefcase to go on this interview for a radio internship. And anyway, we ended up going in there. I ended up meeting her, have my suit. She goes, lose the tie, lose the jacket, lose the briefcase. Don't embarrass me walking through the office. I totally get it. So we took that all, and then I just sat down and talked, got to know how the ins and outs of the broadcast, told her what I did at Liberty University. And then she goes, we have a game tonight. Do you want to come back tonight and see how we produce the game? And I said, oh my God, it's a dream come true. So I came back and we hit it off, and I got to meet I got to meet John Weiss, who does the highlights. I got to be familiar with Dennis Newman, who was doing the radio. It was just a dream come true to get to hear all of this. So and then several months now, that year was the NBA lockout, so I didn't hear right away. So this would have been March. I didn't know until about September. So I just moved down in July that year. Fingers crossed, hoping it would all work out.
And now, shortly after, of course, after the internship, 22 years old, full-time opportunity with the Orlando Magic. What were your initial goals when you first took that position? And what was your first title?
Yeah, okay. So first title would have been radio. It would have been radio producer. So at the same time we had or my boss got a promotion, brought me on board. We had the Orlando Miracle. So it was a long season for my boss to go right from NBA right into WNBA, and you wouldn't get much time off. So they needed some help with the WNBA broadcast. So my job was doing the Orlando Miracle. And I was radio producer for the Orlando Miracle, and I was a producer, ended up becoming the producer for the Orlando Magic as well. So that was my season, going from Magic right into Miracle. And it was awesome. I got to work with Scott Inez, Andrew Monaco, Dennis Newman, Jeff Turner. I mean, just so many, Richie Adubato, who just passed recently, unfortunately. So many great individuals. and to learn, really to learn, to be in a studio environment, to learn from absolute the best professionals on what it takes to prepare for an NBA broadcast, to study, to be ready to go through the rigors of an NBA season. I learned everything from them, just sitting there as a sponge, absorbing that. And I thought, okay, I could do this. I could be a producer forever. That's fine. I just want to be involved in some capacity. Could I eventually get on the other side of the mic? Could I eventually have a radio show or do a segment on the radio broadcast, or eventually be involved in the radio broadcast on air in some capacity, which it ended up switching to eventually. But I thought, you know what, let me learn as much as I can about this. And I prided myself on trying to be the best producer that I could, and really set our talent up for success. So I took a lot of pride in that.
And the question you're asking yourself when you finally get on, right, is, and we're going right from your broadcast, is that something?
There you go. That's right. Is this anything? Could that possibly be the case? Yeah. Well, it's amazing, because I started doing these things, and I'm thinking, okay, production and behind the scenes and all that stuff. I had kind of gotten decent at it, where I could crank through this production, and I could set things up for never ever, Zach, and I'm being honest with you, never ever thinking play-by-play would be an option. Just thinking that's a dream. You know, maybe one day I get an opportunity to do a game here or there or something like that. But hosting, you know, I could host. I could be in the studio, and I could host the pregame show and do the postgame show for, again, still thinking for radio. That was the goal. You know, could we eventually, never thinking television would be an opportunity, but we still owned our over-the-air rights. So this was before every single game was on Sunshine Network and then Fox Sports Florida and all that. So we would do half the games that we would produce and half the games that would be on cable. And so they needed someone internally to do the television sidelines for the over-the-air games. And that's where I got my television opportunity. Kevin Cosgrove and Ty Eastham and Alex Martins, you know, providing the opportunity for me to try to do it. And I know it was rough. I know it was rough at first, but then I thought, oh my goodness, this TV thing, you know, it got either radio or TV, just being on the air in some capacity. And again, sidelines, pregame, that's what I thought would be the extent of it.
Sure. And one more question kind of on this topic, because I think something's very interesting about the way your descriptions, I think you're really showing the importance of understanding everyone that helps you along the way, how to get there. And really, and it was going to be for later, but I think the importance of networking, it's all about everybody that helped you get there, everyone you've worked with.
Yeah.
It takes a village, and every person involved in that decision-making is very important, right? Stay in touch, network, and understand how you can help each other.
Oh, I could not agree more. I could not agree more. And you don't, you know, you never know who you're going to come across, and you never know where your paths may meet again. So you meet somebody now, they take a job somewhere else, but you stay in touch, then they come back or you reunite. You never know. So I think number one in this business, Zach, and I'm a firm believer in this, you have to enjoy and appreciate people. You have to appreciate the relationships, because you meet some fascinating people along the way. You know, you go to Cavs games, the people that you rub elbows with when you go there, they all have a story. They all came from somewhere. They all worked incredibly hard to get where they're at. And everybody has a fascinating story to tell. And you end up making friendships. This becomes a second family, this NBA fraternity that you're working with, and these men and women that you meet along the way. It's fascinating. So you end up forming a bond because you're going to see them 2, 3, 4 times a year, right? So you keep in touch, and then people go their different ways. Some come back, some don't, but you end up keeping in touch with them. And for those that are trying to break in, you know, I think a lot of people make the mistake of, hey, okay, it's great. Now we've got this contact and I've got a network and I've got someone that I can talk to. Do you have a job? Is there anything open? Can you tell me if there's something open, or how can I get in with the Magic or the Cavs or whatever? And that's great. And there may be something open, but I think the value in building your network is you now have this list of people that these contacts, these friendships that you grow and cultivate over time. And then when something becomes available, you now have people that can go to bat for you. And I think that's what happens. That's not why you do it, but that's what happens when you have a network. Or somebody may call you and say, hey, Zach, an opening just happened. We've been in touch the last couple of years. I know what you're looking for. Now this happened. Now I can help you out. So I think you have to appreciate people. If something comes of it, great, but you have to appreciate the person first.
All right, it's not getting it's part of it's getting your foot in the door. But you want to keep the door polished. You want to make sure you can access the door. You don't want the door to jam. You don't want the door to become sticky when it gets hot in Orlando in the summer. You don't be able to walk through any time, right? It might be a revolving door. It might just be a single door. It might be a double door. It might be a security door, right? But as long as you can
Could be a screen door. You never know. What
Yeah,
kind
as
of
long
door
as don't walk through that one. Obviously.
Yeah, right. No, you're right, but you're right. You never know where the opportunities are going to come from. But most importantly, and if no opportunities come, well, then you've made a contact, you've made a friend, and I think that's the most important thing.
Agreed. And you talked about the different path, and I've mentioned that, I had the opportunity when I was in college to talk to a lot of people, doing what you do now across all 30 teams. And it's interesting because from conversation one, I think there were 35, some were TV and radio, to conversation with 35, there were probably 33 different paths. There's like a slight overlap.
Right.
How important do you believe it is for each person in this industry, sports broadcasting, to kind of have their own path and identity rather than try to lean on somebody else that made it their way?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, but I think you have to ask as many questions and find out the different options that there are, right? So it doesn't hurt to know what everybody's path is, because all of that is part of the puzzle. But what works for me maybe doesn't work for someone else. I got to Orlando and I loved this city, this organization. Everybody that I met said the ownership group is second to none in all of sports. It's the best ownership group in sports. The way they take care of their employees, it's like a family. So all of that I had heard for years from people that worked here and didn't work here. So I said, you know what? I've got to find a way to make it work here. And that doesn't always happen, right? So sometimes you got to go to a small town and you got to get on air, or you got to go somewhere else and create your own path. I thought, yeah, I'm going to try to find a way to make myself an asset here. And some people do it that way. And some people, kind of come up through a different sport and then come back to basketball. So there's no wrong way to do it. But the beauty of today's world, and with social media and the way you have a podcast and people that have these shows and content creators that are daily putting out content, is you have a better shot now of putting out a viral piece of video and someone catching it and saying, I want that guy or girl to work for me. And you get an opportunity through social media that way, where you don't even have to pack up and leave town. You don't have to go decide what organization you want to work for. You can be darn good at creating content, and someone can find you that way. And I find that fascinating. I think it's great. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. And I think we have seen a lot of that. There's people in the NBA that got hired in front office positions this summer that came up just putting content out on the internet. That's how they started. And I think of Scoop, and I think of Mike Schmitz, and I think of guys, very, very knowledgeable at what they did, but kind of created their own path. So there's so many ways to get there now.
No, absolutely. And also a quick shout out. You talk about content creators. because, we were in Orlando, do want to shout out the Sixth Man Show, who just
Yes, absolutely.
They did a really nice job covering every element, every aspect, sometimes on site, sometimes remotely, but it's always fun when you got people that really know the team. You're passionate, but not to a fault, which I think is the other thing maybe with this content world, where you get so caught up in your team, your way, and that when they're doing well or not, you kind of put too much personal into it. Because obviously, at the end of the day, you think about basketball and you think about the NBA, is no matter what team you're for, it's probably going to be a 60-40, 65-35 split, right? Some announcers, it's different. Now you're yelling for the Magic, but at the same time, you're not disparaging who's on the other side just because you don't like how a game or a moment went. And I feel like that's like the difference sometimes with digital content versus people that are, on site, boots on the ground.
Yeah, well, I think we have an obligation calling the game, and I have so much credit. Think about Mike Breen, right, who calls the Knicks games all year and has to be quote unquote objective, right, in the NBA Finals. And here's a team that he's covered for so many years, is on the precipice of winning an NBA championship, and he can't, hey, New York, this is for you, you know what I mean? Which is, I'm sure, is inside of him, and he's such a pro that he did that. Now, he admitted it's going to be hard if they have a chance to win for me to keep my allegiance quiet. But I think you have an obligation when we're calling, when we're calling these games for the local team, that yes, we have insider information. We travel with them, we eat with them, we get to know these guys, we interview them behind the scenes, watch them in practice. So we have an obligation to kind of let some of that out, what we see, without burning any bridges or giving any insider, any trade secrets away, but also to be fair. And I think we have to be honest when they're doing well. And I think we have an obligation to kind of point out the things that we're struggling in, but not take away from the other team. And I think sometimes that can get lost, but I think it's important to point out that everybody playing on that stage has made it to the NBA. Everybody has earned the right to be there and to play in those games. So I think we probably are watching it through a Magic lens, and yes, we want the Magic to win. But if the other team is playing well, you got to point that out. Some guys have great games and they beat you. And you got to point that out as well. And I'm glad you mentioned the 6-man podcast with Jonathan Osborne, because I think he did a great. It's going to be a big loss this year. Kevin will do a great job taking over, but I think they did a great job of giving the fans a place to go before and after the game, right? So we want to vent or we want to celebrate. We can do it with these guys, and I thought they did a great job of that.
Sure. And so you kept keeping on Orlando. We talked a lot about your broadcasting and your journey. Let's talk about Orlando, as a city. What is your favorite thing to do outside of basketball near where you live?
Well, it's spending time with family, man. I love getting together with family. We love going out to eat. We'll celebrate. We like going to the beach. We'll usually find a way to get a trip out there, but it's kind of reconnecting. The NBA season is so busy, so we have a lot of downtime. We hang out locally. I'm not a good golfer, but I do like to get out there and play golf. And this is kind of the golf capital. So we'll do that. But I have 2 daughters, and they're in sport. They're in middle school sports and club sports. So between flag football, volleyball, and basketball, most of our free time, in fact, we've got that this week. We're going to be going to a volleyball tournament, but most of our free time is watching our daughters compete in sports. And we love that. We love being sports parents. And if they want to play 5 sports, we'll find a way. If they want to play 1 sport, we'll find a way. If they don't want to play any sports, that's totally fine. We just want them to be involved and have that built-in network. And right now they're in love with volleyball, basketball, and flag football. So that's been fun for me to see the emergence of flag football, especially for girls. Being a girl dad, it's been a blast. So we're having a lot of fun with that right now.
Yeah, and I think with it making its Olympic debut, with possibly Rajon Rondo
Right?
as QB1 in 2 summers, I think that's even going to spike it further. So that could honestly create some kind of genuine league where you get paid to play instead of it's one of those maybe it's a startup league, maybe it's a big one.
Yeah.
That's great.
But don't you think in a couple of years from now, when it is in the Olympics, like you're talking about, don't you think the exposure and the fandom is just going to explode? And I think it's going to be. It already is a huge sport, but I think it's going to be even more popular in a couple of years.
No, absolutely. I think there's a few sports, and for some reason I'm blanking. There's other sports that in the last 6 to 8 years have just emerged huge. Maybe they're new. Was there a different? I guess maybe it was just. I'm thinking a 3-on-3 was in the Olympics, but maybe there was another one in the last Olympics. Was there another sport that debuted in the last Olympics? Am I crazy?
Yeah, that is now popular. Yeah, I'm not sure, but what we saw, we've seen a boom in lacrosse, we've seen a boom in women's lacrosse, we've seen a boom, and there's now, again, being a girl dad, there's female hockey leagues, which I think is fascinating.
WHL,
yeah. I mean, I love it. I love the opportunity. Softball leagues, I love the opportunities that are around. We're big Mia Williams fans. She grew up in Windermere, played for the Gators, played for Texas Tech, went to the softball championship. So we got to follow her. Our girls look up to her. So that was great seeing her journey. So I just love the opportunities that they have now.
And now with all the WNBA expansion coming, Cleveland's getting their team back.
Yes,
Philly's
right.
getting the team. Houston's coming back. Let's see. Now we need Orlando. How long was the Orlando Miracle run?
4 years, 1998 to 2002. But we had great players, Katie Douglas, Nikisha Sales. Nikisha Sales, one of the most accomplished UConn Huskies of all time. Katie Douglas at Purdue winning the championship. So we had a lot of great play. Pee Wee Douglas, that came. So we had a lot of great players, and of course Carolyn Peck, who still does TV, with ESPN. So we had a lot of big names. And then, for me to kind of bring it all back full circle. So here I am, a kid growing up in Boston, and then Dee Brown comes to Orlando as a Magic player, and then becomes the Miracle head coach. So we got to work for a couple of years with him, which was a dream come true. So I have a big soft spot for the WNBA, and I love how it's grown, and I love that they continue to expand.
Great. Shout out right there. I was at opening day and the final day one and opening. That is a Liberty. It's hard to see, I know, around all the Cavs. That is a Liberty championship banner, right bottom corner. So,
I love that. Well, that was a great year. And Sabrina Ionescu, they have some unbelievable talent. So I love where the league has gone right now.
Agreed. One more before we move to completely non-sports questions.
Ooh, okay.
And you kind of already offered advice to some folks, but maybe to be a little bit more formal with the question. What's a piece of advice you would offer the young commentators? So maybe they're in high school, maybe they're early in college. They want to break in. What does Dante Marchitelli have to say about them?
That's a
to
great
them?
question. That's a great question, Zach. And I think you got to find your style and your voice. I think you got. I think a lot of times we get caught up in, or at least I see it and hear that with some youngsters that are coming up. But as soon as the microphone's open, I got to talk a certain way, and I got to do this, and I got to be this for this person, and talk this way for this person. And I think you got to relax. I think you got to be you. And I think when you're the best advice I got was when the microphone is open or when the camera is on, think about the person you're most comfortable talking sports with, and imagine that's the only other person on the other end, right? And have that conversation. Be you. It's got to be natural. It's got to be what you're comfortable with. And I think once you find that voice, I think that's going to help you. And then kind of find your thing. Are you going to be a stats person? Do you like telling stories? Are you going to be, what is your, what is your lane? And kind of once you find that, not that you got to only do that, but that can be something that you can perfect. That can be something you can get excitement and you can get passionate about. And I think that'll help you along the way. And you got to get reps. You got to do what you're doing. You got to have a podcast. You got to have a show. You got to get out there and broadcast. You got to network. You got to meet people. You never know where that can take you as well. But I think the ones that quickly find their voice and their passion, I think then doors that tend to naturally open.
Well said. All right, so now we talked a lot of ball. We talked Orlando. Now we're talking the man behind the mic, the actual real life Dante Marchitelli. You talked about being a girl dad. We got a great start.
Yep.
We are going to move on. To we're putting the chef's apron on. Dante Marchitelli, the chef. What is the food that your wife would say he cooks the best?
Chicken. She would say chicken for sure. Something that I just got a Blackstone. Are you a chef? Do you grill at all?
I do more stir fry on the stove.
Okay, gotcha. I'm not a chef in the kitchen, but on the grill, I can kind of somewhat hold my own. I don't burn things, so that's where my lane is outside on the grill. And we just got a Blackstone, so we just did stir fry last night. So I do like stir fry, but chicken, steak. We did shrimp on there, and then you do rice and veggies and all that stuff. So I love being out on the grill, and I love this. Man, I love having the skillet now with the Blackstone. So all kinds of options. Just got it a couple of months ago, so I'm going to be experimenting with that all summer. I'm not a guy that gets out there 4 or 5 hours and smokes, and smokes brisket or something like that. Or can you do that? I never really.
No,
that's intimidating to me.
I can eat a good brisket that someone smokes for 4 or 5 hours, but I don't think I can be the one grilling it.
You're exactly right. Yeah, if you come over for me, if I've cooked the brisket, you don't want to be eating it. But I do want to get better at that. I do want to perfect that.
Okay. What's your favorite non-basketball sports memory?
Non-basketball sports memory. Well, it would probably be, let's see. There's so many basketball ones. One of my favorite ones would be, obviously, it was going to Celtics games with my dad. But when he took me to Red Sox games, Patriots games, I would go see it. Just any game that I went to as a kid with my dad was a blast. I remember the first time I stood up, we did the wave in Fenway Park, and I forgot that the seat flips up. So I stand up, I do the wave, I go to sit back down, and he caught me because he was watching. He knew it was gonna happen, and he caught me. That's one of my favorite early memories. And then going to opening day in Fenway Park, after they had the comeback in 2004 against the Yankees. They went on to win the first World Series in 86 years. So going to opening day against the Yankees to start the 2005 season, when they all cheered for Mariano Rivera. Oh my goodness, that was one of my favorite. That just was completely unprompted, and it was a great atmosphere in the building. So that certainly was a blast as well.
Always a good, and honestly, the playoff games are all time, and that's the history of 3-0 peak. But every regular season game that those teams played did not. It's always exciting. Obviously, growing up in the New York area, watching so many of them. Did get to Fenway a couple times in my high school and college years. I think I was last there 3 years ago. Always exciting. And I think the Scottish folks were taking over last night.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that getting ready for the World Cup. And, my wife, kudos to my wife, Lana, she brought me to Yankee Stadium before they went to their new stadium. So I can say that I was there. I got to see a game in the Bronx, in the old Yankee Stadium. And that, oh my goodness, that was awesome. That was really cool to get. And Yankee fans were a lot nicer than I thought they would be. I didn't know what to expect, but it was fun. It was a great atmosphere. It was the last year, so I think everybody knew kind of what was coming, but I had a great time there.
And what's the most underrated restaurant, in your opinion, in Orlando? I'm going to write this one down for the next visit.
Ooh, most underrated restaurant in Orlando. Boy, that's a great. I'll tell you, my favorite restaurant is Fresco. If you write that down, favorite Italian restaurant is Fresco, hands down. It is an absolute gem just off of Sand Lake. They're going to open one in downtown Windermere, so that is my favorite, hands down. But as far as an underrated, I mean, there's a lot of good ones here in town. We're big breakfast folks. So we like going to breakfast spots, but there's a Dixie Cream restaurant here in Windermere. Write that down, Dixie Cream,
Okay.
and come visit that. That is a hidden gem here in Central Florida.
And final one to wrap up. What's a fact about Dante Marchitelli that may surprise some people?
Ooh, boy, a fact that may surprise some people. Boy, I wish I could tell you I could juggle or something like that. That I could do something like that. I don't know if it's that surprising, but one of my ancestors, my great uncle, was Italy's ambassador of defense to the United States. So we have someone in our family that was high up in the political scene and would come to the United States and visit with the presidents, and then go back to Italy. So that's something that I don't think a lot of people know. But as far as me personally, I don't know what I could add to that. But that might be something that might surprise some people.
Are you secretly really good at non-basketball trivia? Because I know when you guys get on the air, you, Jeff, and David always have great history banter back.
Sports trivia, I do hold my own in sports trivia. We do like that. We like trivia nights. We love concerts, live music. So that's something that people may not know. We love live music. We're big foodies. We love to check out the food scene. We love to travel. We just did our first cruise. Disney cruise was unbelievable. That was absolutely fascinating. So, but as far as that, probably love going to concerts, and we kind of chill right now. We're in the throes of chasing our daughters around and watching them play sports. But I wish I could. But I do hold my own in trivia, but I wish there was a certain. You know what? I'm pretty darn good at Chinese checkers.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you that. I don't know. We used to have an employee that was unbeaten. You couldn't beat him in tic-tac-toe. It was the craziest thing I ever saw in my life. No matter where you went, it beat you. I'm pretty good at Chinese checkers.
Okay. I do have one last question that has nothing to do with that. And honestly, it's a terrible transition.
Ooh, I like it.
All right. It's a magic question. Then we're signing off. He was my favorite player in NBA 2K. And he only played like 40 games in the NBA. But what are your thoughts on Devin Marble? Because I think about him a lot, and I use him on hoop grids. I feel like if I ask anybody that I watch or talk basketball with, they would not understand what I'm talking about if I just name drop Iowa State's own Devin Marble.
Wow. Well, first of all, before I answer that, I got to know why Devin Marble. What is your infatuation with? I love this. This is fantastic.
It's similar to former Wisconsin forward who played one NBA game, Duje Dukan, the Croatian who played for the Kings.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And Cartier Martin from years past.
Yes.
These small forwards that are not ranked high enough, but you put them in the game anyway, and you find that they can drive, they can slash, and sometimes you want to make the best team with the lowest rated guys. Now, they're not bad players. Duje Dukan, when I had him to drop like 35, and Devin Marble, honestly, first off, I like the goggles.
Yes.
B, you gotta respect a good beard, and C, and I've always liked the Iowa State guys. Obviously Tyrese Halliburton is a Cavs guy, George Niang. He came before both of them, of course. But I liked Devin Marble. I don't know what specifically, but I just remember playing as him, Damian Rudej.
Now listen. Damian Rudej is one of the top 5 people I've come across in my 28 years in the NBA. Absolute class act. And Devin Marble is not far behind him. That is an absolute fantastic individual. We didn't have him a ton, but he did anything that you asked of him. He played hard. He worked hard. He's one of the first ones in the gym. Very respectful, always great around his teammates, a terrific teammate. I also oversee the Orlando Magic Alumni Network. So we just reconnected with Devin a couple of months ago, and he's doing great, playing overseas, having a great career. But he was always a class act and worked hard, and I was happy for him to get the opportunity here, and I know he's having himself a great career. But that's a good one. That's a good one to have on your roster. A glue guy, defense first. He can knock down a corner three, and we love us some Devin Marble here in Central Florida.
Yeah, shout out DM11. Yes. Devin with a Y, by the way, even more unique.
I can't wait for the Zach with an H pod with Devin Marble. Can we make this happen?
We got to make that. You got the connection. Let's
all right. We're going to bring this back full circle for you. I think that'd be great.
All right. Well, Dante, thank you for the time. And I know obviously you're in off-season mode. You're watching your daughters play sports, enjoying the food scene. You're taking up brisket lessons now. Is there any work we can find you doing this summer? Are you fully enjoying the time until what? You'll probably be at summer. Are you gonna be at summer league in a month with the Magic?
We don't go to summer league, but we'll be down. We'll be getting ready for the draft. Years gone by, we've done a draft show, but without having a first round pick, we probably won't do that. We'll be putting out content on social media, all the Orlando Magic social media channels. We're expecting to get Sean Sweeney here in town soon,
That's
so hopefully
right.
we'll be doing some stuff. Yes, hopefully we'll be doing some stuff with him. And now it turns kind of full into Orlando Magic alumni. So we've got a lot of camps here in Central Florida, and we have former players that will attend those camps. So we do a lot with our alumni here in Central Florida. I'll be at Stadium Club with Quentin Richardson here in Central Florida on Wednesday. So we'll be doing an interview there. So there's stuff that comes up, and we'll be bouncing around town. But the off season. There is no off season in the NBA. The season never sleeps, and that's what we love about the NBA.
Well, Dante, thank you for the time, and looking forward to tracking everything you continue to do as you go into year 29. Let's go.
How about that, Zach? I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out to me, and it's tough during the summer, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you sticking with it. We made it happen. I look forward to meeting you when we get up there to Brooklyn to play the Nets.
All right, looking forward to it. Dante Marchitelli, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Zach with an H pod. We're back Thursday. Jeff Bernstein has been the SID at NYU since 1999. He's been in the field for 45 years. Hear from him Thursday, and we'll see you all then.